Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Sunday morning paranormal weekend morning brew show. You're going to be stuck with Nighthawk and Midwest Night Watchers, G and Dennis for the next hour or so, maybe even two. We never know. But to all those mothers that are out there, we want to first off wish you all a happy Mother's Day and hopefully many, many more. And then we're gonna get everything, the copyrights and stuff like that, and we'll start the show. This channel may use some copyrighted materials without specific authorization of the owner, but contents use here falls under the Fair Use Act of 1976. For the purposes of criticism, which we do, commentary, news reporting, teaching, research, parody, and everything else general knowledge wise. So, that being said, I'm going to cut the intro short. I'm going to take down and we're going to bring our brothers from our other mothers on and we're going to get into it. Okay. And guess what the subject's going to be today, folks? Yeah, nope, you didn't guess it. Nope, not Dog Man. Nope, not Bigfoot. Nope, not Goat Man. Nope, not Mothman. It's gonna be ghosties. Yes, I did say ghosties. Spirits, spooks, those things that go bump in the night in your house and make things tremble on the shelf and fly across the room, kind of like a poltergeist. Now, I got two poltergeists right here coming in. I got Grandmaster G and I got Dennis Carroll coming in. Both ghosties in their right minds and probably poltergeists because they probably threw in a few things across the room in their days.
I've been known to be a little noisy sometimes. Yeah, definitely. But I got
Good
things
morning,
going
guys.
bumping. I got things going bump in the night in my house, but it's usually junk falling over somewhere.
All right. Good morning, Cynthia and Raven Creek Charms, Ozzy Sue. David, good to see you on here, brother. Alrighty, let's see who else we got on here. We have Gary Senior. Good to see you. And let's see, we have. Oh, come on now. I know that's not everybody. I know we got some hiding in the shadows. We always do. They'll pop out. Let's see here. They'll pop out. And if they don't, that doesn't mean we hate them. There's Melissa. See, I told you. I told you Melissa would pop out. Alrighty. Anyways, we're gonna get into the whole ghost thing, okay? You know, we haven't really talked about it much lately, the spirits and ghosts and all that, and that part of the paranormal. Because we've been a little busy with other things and doing research and stuff and other podcasts. But we talked yesterday after the podcast, and we thought that doing the ghosts and the type of paranormal field, topic would be a good discussion today, since it's a Sunday. So, however you guys want to lead it off, you lead it off, and I'll be watching the chat and bringing up questions and comments and all that. You know how it goes. So, Grandmaster G
Well,
Master
let me
Dennis, you get to go.
let me uh, let me say this, and I'm gonna make this statement before we begin anything. People have a confusion going on with the terms ghost and spirits. Okay, people, they're the same thing. All right, they're the absolutely same thing. They're just two different ways to say it. A ghost is a spirit, and a spirit is a ghost. Okay, but some people get hung up on that for some reason. I don't know why. And ghosts are not orbs floating around. Okay, they're those are usually dust motes and water droplets. And I don't care what kind of face you want to put on them or what color they are. They're not ghosts. That is not a spiritual energy unless it has a motivational intelligence behind it. That's not what you think it is. Okay, so let's forget about the orbs. All right, I don't want to hear about no orbs. But let me say this. And I'll turn it over to Gerald. Let me say this. After 55 plus odd years in this business, I can say one thing that I have taken away from it all. There is something beyond death, definitely. Take it away, sir. What's
All
your
right.
feelings?
Well, I kind of feel it. Just not really to contradict you, but I really do think orbs do have a way of traveling with spirits, and whether they're disembodied or whether they're some form of travel or some kind of light energy. I mean, we kind of feel in our house anyway that orbs have something to do with spirits or the afterworld or dimensional.
I'm
Well,
kind of under
spirits
you.
can manifest. Spirits can
Yeah.
manifest as spiritual energy. Oh, that's definite thing.
Right.
But most of the orbs though that people see, Gerald, and they come up and say, "Oh, look, it's got a face. That's Uncle Henry," or something. I mean, no, 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 no. That's a piece of dust floating in the air. That's a water droplet. Real ghost, real ghost lights. Real ghost lights have an intelligence. They can go around things, and it's either a ghost light or a bug. I've seen bugs do that too. Okay, they go around stuff, but that's an intelligence. If it has an intelligence, I'll look twice or three times at it. But if it's not, if it's just I can make all the orbs you want. Right now, I can go take a camera and stir some dust up or some water droplets, and you'll have plenty of orbs. That's not what people think that they're spirits, but that's not what they are. I mean, let's look at the real facts. They're dust and water. And these things did not appear that much until digital cameras became known too, by the way. And I'll tell you why that is, because the digital camera works on a different time frame than the old cameras we used to use. They're they're catching things we didn't catch before. That's like these rods people talk about. These rods. Oh, I got a big rod going out, and it's a bug slowed down, or sometimes the speed is extended on it to make it look like a rod, but it's a bug. Okay, and that's basically what it is. But orbs, no, no, no. Show me one that's got intelligence, and we'll talk about it.
Now, here's the one thing. Some of the orbs that, and I see them periodically, and I know the difference between a dust ball and a hair ball and a smoke ring and all that when it comes to orbs. You know, I tend to agree with Dennis on this that unless it's the essence of something that's manifesting, um, I tend to agree that it's probably more than likely going to be either environmentally caused,
Uh-oh.
or
Well, it's
or
time for you.
yeah, or basically it's going to be something that's either technical or environmental. But I do see small orbs with what I call a tail or a wisp. It's a wisp that I call that I believe are spirits, and I know that they are spirits because I've seen the spirit leave the body of somebody, and I've seen that essence come out of the body. So that is what I believe is spirit in some type of
Spiritual.
form.
I call it spiritual energy. That's basically what it is, and you can see it in different forms. I had a lady tell me that she turned over in bed one night, and her husband was on the other side of the bed. She turned over, faced the wall, so that all of a sudden there was just a little light, like man, it just would pop. It just kind of popped. I said, "Well, that sounds like spiritual energy to me. That what else would that be?" I said, and she was having paranormal activity in her house. So that told me a story right there. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Real, true spiritual entities look like these things. They can take on these appearances and this imagery especially when they're, like you said, manifesting. In the process of manifesting. Oh yeah, I agree with you.
So, but I mean, spirit can come in any shape it really wants to, as long as it knows that the person they intend to interact with will recognize it in that form. So, I mean, if G is seeing orbs around the house and stuff, maybe that's the point where they're trying to manifest, but they're not fully manifesting because they don't have the capability or the power yet, that they can adapt to change into something that,
and that could explain a lot of shadow people too, in certain aspects. Sometimes shadow people are downright demonic. Sometimes they're like interdimensional. But the shadow people that are most associated with ghosts are sort of two-dimensional. They're kind of flat, like it's like they're truly casting of the shadow on the wall, kind of a shadow. You know what I'm saying? Those are more in line with spiritual manifestation, I think. We're talking about hair today.
Yeah. I got mine pulled back. It's not into a man bun though, but you know what?
I can have a ponytail, but I just didn't put it up today. So what do you think, Gerald? Have you ever experienced what you would say is a ghost?
No, nothing like you'd see in the movies or Ghostbusters or anything, where you actually have a full bodied spirit or whatever. But a couple times in my life I've experienced what I thought was somebody else that wasn't. When I turned and looked at them, they weren't the person that I was with. And it was just like for a brief second, it scared me, jottled me, and then I look back at them, then it'd be back to normal. I don't know what that happens twice to me so far in my life. I don't know what it was, or if it was my imagination or something else was going on, and I can't explain it.
That's also called transitioning, Gerald. A lot of people run into that. You see something out of the corner of the eye there, and you put your focus on it, and it changes or it's gone. It's sort of transitioning away from you. That's what they call that, and it's sort of like related to residual hauntings more than well, it could be both, but a lot of times it's more related to residual type hauntings. I myself have seen several full-bodied apparitions. The first time, that's the holy grail of ghost research, by the way, spirit research, to see an actual full-bodied apparition. But the first time I thought it was somebody. I thought it was a living person. That's how much real it looked to me, you know. But what you're talking about, sort of what they call transitioning. And you can look out in the corner of the eye and then look back again into something else,
Gerald,
I gotta have ability to do that.
Yeah, I gotta ask Gerald this. When you said that about them changing, is that somebody that's actually physically sitting with you, near you, or that you're visualizing on a TV screen, and they physically change in front of you?
Yeah, it was actually two separate people, two separate times, and the one time I'm driving and my girlfriend in high school was sitting next to me. We're on our way to the movies or whatever, and I turned to talk to her, and whatever was sitting over there was not her, at least in the face anyway. And it startled me, and I, paid more attention to the road and looked back, and then everything was normal.
Well, there's a big history of people passing haunted spots and cemeteries, and these things are actually showing up in their cars. Manifesting inside their vehicles. That's I've heard a lot of stories about that happening, especially with truck drivers. That sounds a little bit like what you're talking about there.
I actually, I get what you're talking about, G. I've seen that a couple times myself, and it's where what I think, which does amount to a hill of beans, but what I think is it's a spirit trying to tap into more energy to manifest into some form that you can recognize through somebody that you already are with. Okay. That they will temporarily shadow over that person's image to project themselves to you. Okay. Because they're trying to communicate with you because they know you're sensitive. Okay. Also, I want to address
Amy. Yeah.
Well,
I was just going to say about it. What Amy's talking about there is we call a visitation.
Exactly.
That's sort of a God-given thing. God lets that happen. So to comfort you, it can be in your dreams. It can be in waking. I've had many cases of visitations. We call them visitations.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say.
And there's a difference between a visitation and a crisis apparition. A crisis apparition is someone or the spirit of a dead one, something that comes back to warn you about something. So William, don't go there tomorrow. You better heed that. By the way. You better pay attention to it. That's a crisis apparition. In other words, that's sort of the thing sent by God too, as a warning to you to help you with something that's bad coming your way or whatever. Those are kind of rare, but you saw those a lot in the Ghost of Flight 401. You remember that very famous case about the haunted airliner, and the pilots kept showing. And one of them, he come back one time and said there's going to be a fire on this plane. And sure enough, one of the engines caught fire. So that's a crisis apparition.
Yeah, Amy's bringing up also, and I want to say good morning to Joey, Z, and Quantum Gut Feelings. Good to see you all here, and of course Amy. Polaroids are awesome cameras. I remember some of my best evidence that I collected back in the early '80s was using the Polaroid cameras where the film actually came out the front. And
that's my first camera I ever had was a Polaroid, by the way.
You get some really fantastic pics with that. And you can question it. You can technically, debunk it or whatever, and chalk it up to bad film or bad exposure or whatnot because it's an instamatic camera. But it was still in the day. It was really cool to get those kind of images, and you always really appreciated what you got with that camera. That's a good camera to have. So Polaroid.
Like I said earlier, it's a big difference in that time frame and what we have now with digital cameras. There's a whole different ball game, really, in many ways.
Yep, you're right. Let's see. And don't forget, guys, if you got any questions for the guys here in the chat, just put them up and I'll post them so they can read them, okay? All right.
I love that. I did a lot of research on that Ghost of Flight 401, by the way. Let me tell a quick story about that. Ed and Lorraine Warren had a museum and they actually had a piece of that plane. They got out of the Everglades, and they had a visitation by one of the crew members that died on that plane because they had a piece of that plane there and there. I've always wanted a piece of it myself because it's a very famous ghost story. And here's the interesting part: just like Oshak the Night Stalker, they went to great lengths to cover this thing up. You know, they, that was the strange thing about it. Of course, the airlines they were afraid of losing money. Hey, don't fly on our planes; they're haunted. We'll lose money. You know.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? That would be a great trip, though, if you think about it. If you got a bunch of people in the paranormal field and rented a jet for the entire day or evening or whatever, and took it up and actually did a paranormal investigation on the plane, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be neat. I'd love to do that. Yeah, that would be sharp. Especially if you had some pieces from that plane we're talking about on there with you. That would make it very interesting.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the flight. That's the flight. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the flight that in Florida went into the swamp and exploded, and all the people got killed.
Oh, the crash.
But they took those parts and they put them in another plane. And the stewardess,
right.
I remember the stewardess seeing the captain of the flight that wrecked in the window of the microwave behind her.
Yeah, the oven.
He was trying to say something, and she dropped her tray and ran out of there.
Yeah. And here's the one that really was freaky to me. Is the woman that was a passenger in the seat out there, and she turned around and he's sitting there in the seat next to her. I mean, that would have to freak you out. So he's sitting there and he turns and looks at the woman and said, "There'll never be another crash of a L101 or something." And the woman started screaming. That was neat. I'd have loved to have been there, definitely.
Yep.
Now, what do you guys?
Morning, Bob.
I was just gonna say, what do you guys think of the stories like when you had the ghost plane fly in from a previous air or whatever that was supposedly lost, and all of a sudden it taxis onto the runways? You hear those stories once in a while also.
Those and ghost ships. You hear ghost ships a lot too.
Yeah, it was supposedly a story about, and this is a made-up thing, okay, and this is how, stuff gets started, but there's supposedly a plane that disappeared, and 5 years later it landed in an airport in South America, and everybody on the plane, there were skeletons. They were all dead. They were skeletons. So the question of that is, how could a plane remain 5 years in the air without fuel and all that? But that is very much like the stories you hear about ghost ships at sea, that they actually board these ships, and that's very plausible. There are several true cases of this happening, where they board the ships and they're like skeletons on the ship, but the ship is still sailing. That's possible on the ocean, but not in the air. Definitely not. But there is one other one that's supposed to have had, and I think they made a story on this on TV, where the guy. And this, I'll give you an explanation for it. The guy disappeared right before World War I. He was a German hang glider. Remember that one, William? And after the war, he landed again. It's possible he could have been up in the trees. He died being caught, and it came loose. But at the very precise time that his girlfriend showed up there, that's interesting. But that's a very famous case, too.
Yeah. David brings up doctors have measured a drop in weight when someone dies at the moment of death from those that agree that it is done. Soul leaving the body, maybe. And yes, that is, I agree 100% with that. That weight loss is because of the soul.
Yeah. I've talked with a lot of people that have seen that actually happen, nurses and stuff. And they say that the body, it almost like it just deflates like too. It goes in on itself. As soon as the life leaves it, it kind of deflates like. which I think is a normal
And
reaction of
Rob,
the body, releasing
Michigan
releasing
Rob is
air and
calling.
all that, you know. Uh-huh.
Bigfoot Michigan Rob is calling somebody old in the chat. He says, "Hi, senior."
Oh, oh,
That's a joke.
yeah.
That's a
Well,
joke, Rob.
Bob, at least we're old enough to know better, okay, Bob? Or we should
Oh,
be anyway.
that is.
Salter, look back, and there they
Yeah.
are. Yeah, that would be frightening. Yeah.
That did. I mean, that did scare me. That made me. Especially the one in high school when we're going out on a date and you look over at somebody that you're in love with, and all of a sudden that isn't the person you're looking at. That
Well,
definitely shook me, and I mean I had to literally look away. It was that scary.
let me tell you a quick story. It kind of reminds me of what you're talking about. About this guy was driving down the road late one night on a lonely highway, and he didn't know it, but he was coming up on a scene where some people had gotten killed at an intersection. But just before he got to the intersection, this woman appears, this young girl sitting there next to him. He was by himself, you know. And he looks over there and she's sitting there and she says, "Stop the car right now. Don't go through that intersection up ahead." Well, he did. He immediately stopped the car and looked back. She was gone. So about that time, somebody ran through that, blowed right through that intersection, would have killed him if he'd have been there. And you have to wonder sometimes, you know, if it ain't your time, it ain't your time, and something's gonna come along to prevent that. You know? But that would have to have been a startling thing to go through. I would have been very happy for that kind of a ghostly experience, definitely. But uh, you hear these stories time after time that people go, they come up on. Here's another thing, Cheryl, and you know, I see this happen a lot. I don't know if it happens where you live a lot, but it happens where I live, where people they commemorate the sites where people die on the side of the road. I don't know if you
Right.
noticed
We have
that.
crosses.
Yeah, they put up crosses and flowers and all that. Okay, I understand where they're coming from on that, and I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that. I know you want it, but I think it would be better, folks, if you would commemorate where they're resting and not where they died, because that was a traumatic, awful thing to die there, you know. And that would not be good in my book. I would more or less want to commemorate those people at their gravesite. You know what I'm saying, Gerald? And
Right.
where they died. And I think here's the reason I'm talking against that. Because I think if you commemorate something like that, that place of trauma, I think you kind of stick those people there. They have an attachment to the place they died, and you're helping it along. You know what I'm saying? And that's not
Yep.
really good in my book. I just don't feel good about it. You know what I mean? I could be wrong, but that's the way I feel.
You know, you also hear about people traveling down the road and they go to pick up a hitchhiker or they see somebody and it ends up being like a ghostly experience, whether it's a young woman or a man or whatever, just seem like they're walking down the road. You go to pick them up and some of them even have full conversations with them on the road, after they do pick them up, and then the next time they're gone.
Yeah, and there's a very religious one, where the guy picks the hitchhiker up. It could be a man or a woman. And he picks him up and he's driving down the road and the guy turns to him and says, Jesus is coming soon. And he disappears. It's like an angelic visitation kind of thing. That would be unsettling too, definitely. But the very famous hitchhiker is leads on that. The very famous ghostly hitchhiker story is all over the world, by the way.
There was the one case in I think it was California or Colorado. I can't remember which area, but I think it was Colorado in the Sierra Mountains, where a young lady was determined to be a couple days late from her first day of working, and this one guy kept on driving down this winding road. in the mountains in a certain section, and every time they would see a dog or a child or the lady on the side of the road sitting there, waving, trying to flag him down. And he'd go to stop, and the person would disappear. Well, this went on and on and on. And finally, this person got home, and apparently they had a dream about this person coming to them, like Amy said, where they gave an exact like marker number, like a highway marker number for a location, type of a thing.
Mile
And
marker.
this individual actually put two and two together and figured out it was a missing young woman locally. And he went to the parents, and that mile marker that he got in the dream was exactly where they found that young woman's body from a car wreck, where her and her son and their pet all died in the car wreck. But the parents of the family members were able to recover their loved ones and honor them that way. So yeah, there is all kinds of, you always hear all these stories about these ghostly encounters on these dark, empty roads when you're driving at night, and that chill goes down your spine, and the windows get a little, frozen up because of the cold air in the car suddenly. I mean, you hear about it all the time.
Well, not far from where I live, William, there's a story about that. I live very close to a very large lake. And there's a story, and I've heard this several times. Different people have told this story, that they've been along a certain stretch near that lake, and there's a lady standing on the side of the road, and this could be in the dead of winter time, and it says she is soaking wet. You can see water dripping off of her, okay? And she tries to flag them down. Of course, they blow through there. They won't mess with it. You don't know who you're going to pick up nowadays. You don't pick up anybody, really. And this has been cited several times, and they come to find out that I don't know if it's still ongoing or not, but I investigated this several times. That is the very spot, not very far from that spot on the side of the road, is the lake behind her is where that lady drowned, and she fits that same description of the one that people are seeing. And who would be standing on the side of the road in the dead of winter, soaking wet? For no reason like that. That doesn't make sense. They didn't not have to try to scare anybody. That sounds to me like an apparition, definitely. But that was very unusual. When I found out that there was a drowning that took place there, and found out it was a woman of around that general same age and description, that was freaky.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever had an experience like that, Gerald, as far as of anyone telling you that they had that kind of an encounter where they saw the ghost standing on the side of the road, whether it's by a cemetery or whatever?
No, the only story I have is back. I probably would have been just out of college, and there was a story of an old cemetery out by us, out in the country, that supposedly, if you go out there at midnight. And I don't know if it has to be a certain date. I can't remember the exact story. But if you go out there, there'll be a young girl, probably in her teens or, early adulthood, that will show up out there next to an old well that supposedly was on a farm or whatever, and that she had drowned in that well. And she'll come out at midnight, and you'll hear her moan and scream, and just a ghostly, eerie feeling out there. But I've went out there a couple times with some people, and of course it's me and a friend and our girlfriends or whatever, and the girls always got scared, so we always had to leave before we even got to experience anything. But I've heard people talk about it here, in our area, about that it really does exist, and they've experienced it.
But the fun part is when they get scared and hug up on you, right, Gerald?
Yeah.
That's why I always like to take girls to the graveyard, too. But anyway, To me, an interesting aspect of this, and since you mentioned the whale, reminded me of the case I had where there was a haunted barn. My dog wouldn't even go in this barn. Okay, this barn had a lot of stuff around it. So we pick up an EVP in this barn, and I think the girl I used to have this. I don't have it anymore. I don't know whatever happened to it. I don't know why I did save some of the stuff in my cases. I don't know. Stupid. Anyway, we had an EVP, and this is what it said. I mean, it's very clear. It was a Class A1 EVP. You know what I'm saying? You didn't have to strain to hear it. And she asked the question, "Are you dead?" Why she asked that, I don't know, but she did. The girl asked the question that, and you get a voice back that says, "The whale." I couldn't figure that out, so I go back and ask the woman that owns the farm. I said, "Do you have a whale, an old whale around here?" I figured there was a whale. Every farm had a whale. She said, "Yeah, oh yeah, there's an old whale, only one." I said, "Well, where's it at?" She said, "It's in the barn." So I go back and look, and over in the corner up under an old stall, there's the whale cap there. And I'm saying, "Oh God, if I could only excavate that whale, there's no telling what you might find in it." That was very obvious clue.
Yeah. They there was a case too in Hawaii, a very famous one where people every now and then see the original Aboriginal tribal members going through with torches, going through the jungles of a certain part of Hawaii. And here they were all spirits, and they were going to the water to do some kind of ceremony. And I know, I know Josh Gates investigated it, and several other paranormal investigators, and they got the same thing, the same results. That they captured. What it was Aboriginal.
They call them the Night Marchers, actually, and it's sort of a very famous ghost story in Hawaii, or spirit story, whatever you want to think. That they're on some kind of a ritual they used to perform, where they would march with torches to here. But let me tell you this right quick. I talked to a guy that actually he was on the ramparts of Dracula's castle in Romania. Okay. I mean, the actual castle, and this thing is ruined. This is not the tourist thing, okay? This is a bad place to be. I want to go there, though. But anyway, he said he would stand on the ramparts looking out in the forest, and he saw torches moving through the forest. Now, people don't use torches anymore. You don't need to. You got flashlights. But he said, I felt almost as if I were looking back 200 years in the past, to see people walking through the forest with these torches. That was an interesting thing. And I've also seen footage where on a haunted fort, and I think this is Ticonderoga, if I'm not sure the fort, and they actually took this thing. You see a spark out in the dark on the ramparts. There's a spark, and then all of a sudden there's a light and a glow, and it moves slowly off. And they come to figure out what it was. Back in the old days, you didn't have matches. You had to spark the candle in your lantern, to walk the ramparts with it at night. And that's what we were seeing. The spark that started the candle, that lit the candle. This was like looking back 200 years ago, And that's residual type haunting, really.
Now, G, you had some interesting things happening during your podcasts at your place. Would you care to enlighten everybody on what happened there? I mean, that's pretty incredible what happened.
Yeah, we still don't know what to think of it. I mean, we keep watching the videos, and trying to debunk it or whatever. And a couple things we came up with, debunking some of them, but it started with your show that one morning with right out of this teardrop. We had that ghostly arm kind of thing going on, and we
sure blame me.
Yeah, so we've sat there and we sat there, me,
We
you,
saw
and
that. We saw some of that. Yeah, we saw some of that. Definitely.
so we kind of figured out that maybe possibly it was a hair on the camera, so we kind of laughed that one off, but it was interesting while that happened. But then people started sending us in timestamps, of little orbs or what they called looking like a feather floating down and coming behind me or floating away from me. And so I broke all that down. I sent you a couple of them last night, I believe. I didn't know if you got them or not. But yeah, the audience and the chat's been really good sending us timestamps during all of our live videos. And so far, almost every live video, we have some kind of feather or orb or some kind of thing floating around. And it's not like it falls straight down, just like a hair or something, but it would actually have movement and direction to them. And I don't know, we just can't figure it out. And I, just like this morning, I moved certain things in my background and I made sure there was no dust bunnies or hairs or anything in there. And it's just clean back there. So I don't know. I do that every broadcast.
I've talked to a lot of psychics about these things, and investigators as well, and they say that sometimes in certain locations you got what are called drifting spirits. They kind of just drift through, that location. They're not actually haunting it. You know what I'm saying? They're not sticking around to actually do a haunting, but they're just sort of, and they say there are certain areas that this is more prevalent in, and that could be what your situation is, that you're in an area where these things are just kind of drifting through once in a while. And, I wouldn't worry about it. I don't think they're going to harm you in any way. But it doesn't sound like a haunting. It doesn't sound demonic. It just sounds like what they call drifting spirits. In other words, wayward spirits, whatever name you want to call them. They just happen to be passing through.
Tonight or even previous ones. If you go and look at them, we have 4 or 5 of them up there right now, I believe.
Mm-hmm. I think this is our 5th one, counting the after midnight. I think I just saw something fly behind your head again.
No, not again. Really? Yeah. It just kept happening and happening, and it always seems like it comes right out of that pistol, out of that gun picture.
Well, is that a mirror or a glass on that painting or whatever behind you, directly behind your head?
There's no glass. It's just it's just like a paint. It's not really even a painting with actual paint. It's like a reproduction picture.
Is it a poster or a picture, actually?
It's a picture.
Oh, okay. I just wondered what it was. Because I noticed it kind of goes to the side of that a little bit. I would love to come investigate your house, Gerald. So where's Dennis at? He's camping out in the back room for a few hours here.
In that picture, was Jane's dad's, and I don't know if it has any connection to him, other than that. But
what is he? Do you know the history of your place there, any?
No, we know the family. It's a ranch style house, but it was built connected to a farm property here right outside our town. I mean, we're still in town, we had neighbors and stuff, close by, but it's connected to a 80-acre field, and there's another 100 acres behind it, that's somebody else's property. But this house was built by the farmer.
The old
and he built it himself.
Is that what it is? Is it
What's
kind
that?
Of farmland? Is it kind of farmland like?
From our backyard out is.
I just wonder if it might have been an old homestead there, years ago or something,
Very possible, but I mean, like I said, we're actually part of the town. We're in town, but our backyard goes out into the country.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's an interesting part of spiritual research, spirit research. I don't like to call it ghost hunting. That's just me. But anyway, the interesting part is the history. That's a key a lot of times. And it can also be kind of a frustrating part because history sometimes doesn't go back far enough to tell you anything, you know. But the history is very important of any place like that to find out as much as possible that you can what was there once upon. Let me tell you this quick story. I investigated a haunted Burger King. Okay, now, I know this is gonna sound weird, but they were having some freaky stuff going on. They had a full-bodied apparition of a little boy that showed up sitting in a booth at Burger King. These women would get pinched a lot of times. Pans and stuff would get moved around. They were getting freaked out. So they called me to come in, and I wanted to camp out in this Burger King overnight, but they wouldn't let me do it. Of course, when they closed the doors, that's it. You know, they wouldn't let me do it. But here's what I come to find out, Gerald. That there was an old farmstead there on that very location. And here's the interesting thing: there was a pond there. It's not there anymore now. I walked the land around it. I picked up all kind of EMF stuff off of this. It was freaky. And anyway, I couldn't do EVPs like I wanted to, but I had to walk through the Burger King when everybody was sitting in there eating, you know. So I was very frustrated. I could only do so much, you know. But I come to find out there was an old pond there, and a little boy drowned in that pond.
Oh.
So that was an explanation for the little boy showing up in the restaurant, and it was at the very same location. So actually, if you want to look at it this way, the spirits weren't really haunting the Burger King; they were haunting the location of the Burger King. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's been a lot of stuff going on with restaurants, and I think it was Burger King was the last one I heard where either employees or people would notice that people would go into the restroom but never come out, almost like they went into a portal, or they can't explain it.
That's freaky, you know. You have to wonder how many times that you know, people, these strange disappearances are definitely connected to something like that sometimes, you know. I think ghosts would transport themselves through portals. You know, that would be the smart way to manifest and move from location to location, especially if you're spiritual energy, you know.
Yeah, in our case, you know, like you were saying, we don't feel any evil or poltergeist activity going on. You know, it's just some kind of happening going on. And Rocky in the chat there is the one that's been sending us all the timestamps of all of our. So I go back in our videos and look at the timestamps that Rocky sends to us, and there's always something there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it doesn't sound demonic. It sounds like drifting spirits, kind of a thing. You know, that's what it sounds like to me. I've encountered that in certain locations. That kind of a thing going on. So it's never really harmful and all that. They're just sort of minding their own business. You mind yours, and you're okay. You know, kind of a thing. Don't bother me. I won't bother you.
Yeah. I want to say hello to Val and Rocky and, you know, let's see, Gemini Moon. Thank you guys for stopping in and, you know, sharing your comments and stuff. I appreciate that. But obviously, Rocky is definitely on the ball when it comes to timestamping material behind people. So hopefully she'll do that for us, you know, if she's watching and she sees something that's, you know, strange or unusual behind Dennis.
And, you know, there's a bunch of unusual stuff behind me. Okay. But you know what I was going to say, that most of the time, you can sometimes, once in a while, you run into a mischievous kind of a spirit. You know, they want to play with you a little bit and play some head games with you sometimes, once in a great while, you know. And I've had that encounter too, and I say, well, I kind of laugh it off. Well, they're just having their fun, I guess. You know, in the afterlife, they get bored too, you know. So, but anyway, you run into that once in a while, you know, the mischievous kind of things.
You know, and to answer Val, I actually have that happen quite a bit to me. I'll hear plain as day, real loud in my, and it's always this ear. It's always my left ear. Okay,
Mine too.
which is always, it's attributed to a Native American legend of being able to hear your ancestors' voice in your left ear for some reason. Usually it's because your ears pierced, and you know, I've got my ear pierced, so. But I always hear real loud, crisp, Bill, you know, just like that, Bill, you know.
That was the very first paranormal experience I had, William. I was in a house. I was about 14 years old. I started up the stairs in this old abandoned house, and right in my left ear, I mean loud. It wasn't, you know, some people, did you hear it in your mind? No, I heard this. I mean, I could feel, it was like, get out. And buddy, I left, you know. I mean, that was it. I wasn't arguing with him. I said, okay, you want me to
Sweet
leave?
Mother of God, don't feel me now.
Yeah. You don't have to tell me twice. But I mean, it was very unmistakable. And I looked around. I was with some other boys. I thought it might have been them playing a joke on me or something, but they were like in the way in the other part of the house. And I said, okay, that's going to do it for me. You know, I'll see you guys later.
Oh,
That was freaky. That was real freaky.
okay, David, she's washing her hands of you.
Yeah.
She's had enough of you, David. She's washing her hands.
That's it. It's over. Yes. That's it.
Oh, okay. Let's see what other comments we got here. I'm done picking on people. Oh, let's see. Unbelievable details down to the smells. Oh, yeah. Smells are a biggie. Yeah, smells are a biggie, like cologne or even smoke from cigarettes. You know, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember I was in a house one time, and I didn't know this, you know, and I was called in to investigate it. And in a back room, I kept smelling cigar smoke once, and just, you know, not real strong. I just catch a whiff of it every once in a while. So I finally asked the lady. I said, "You don't smoke, do you? You know, anybody? Oh shit, nobody smokes in this house. Nobody smoked in this house since my grandfather died in that back room like 10 years ago." I said, "He didn't perchance light cigars, did he?" She said, "Oh yeah, how'd you know that?" I said, "Well, I think he's still puffing away."
He's
I
still
think
there.
he's still back there doing it. Freaky stuff, man.
Now, Chiro mentioned once in a while she still, even though her father had already passed away, that in our house she will smell the cherry tobacco that he used to love to smoke in his pipe.
Yeah, I've smoked that myself. Cherry was good. My favorite was black rum, though, by the way. But you know, some people say, "Oh, well, the smell's still lingering." I said, "How can you say that after 10 years?" No, it's something else going on, you know. And I've actually experienced that my own self since this is Mother's Day. Not very long after my mother passed away, I smelled her perfume, and it was just like she actually walked in the room, you know. That was it. And like I said before, that's sort of like a visitation thing. That's sort of a comforting thing for you to comfort you, I think. That God lets these things happen for a reason. And a lot of times I think it's comfort. Yeah.
Yeah, because growing up as a little kid, you know, after we were finished with Sunday school, we'd go up and be with our parents, you know, during the main service at our church. And I can remember being next to my dad and being a little kid, being in his lap, and then I would nuzzle up against his, you know, nape of his neck and stuff, and I could smell his cologne. And I can still smell that cologne every time I think about it, or every once in a while, you know, I'll just get a whiff and just take me right back to that moment of a little kid, you know, with just nuzzled right into his shoulder and neck.
No. Well, Gerald, the number one sign of a visitation is called, it's not scary. You know what I'm saying? It's not, it doesn't scare you. It may startle you a little bit, but it's not, and it really comforts you, makes you feel good, really, in the long run. And that's the true sign of a real true visitation type thing. It's not scary. It's nothing like that. Um, you can be startled without being scared. You can say, "What was that?" or something. You're not really being scared out of your wits. You know what I'm saying? You can be startled, but also it can be a comforting thing. That's the main sure sign of what you just experienced was something good. You know, something designed for you to make you feel better in your situation. You know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We got confirmation. Rocky's going to be watching you, Dennis.
Uh, okay. Let me know if you see anything back here, okay? Let me see if there's things going on behind me. I want to know, all right?
Did you see that video, William, that I sent you of the dog seeing or hearing something that the owner couldn't see in the?
Yeah. Yeah, I tried to upload that video so I could show it, but the only place I could upload it is to my pages and stuff. So,
Uh,
or put it out Messenger. I don't know why Messenger won't let me upload videos right to StreamYard. That's just that's
I know,
unheard
it's
of.
very limited. It's very limited. You can't even say video on Messenger. Which is
Yeah,
very, you can say video on Facebook, and they're supposed to be linked. Why can't you do it on both of them? It's stupid. I don't know.
exactly. Okay.
But I've seen a lot of freaky things on video that have happened. Watching video cameras and with infrared. Bugs. Bugs even pay attention. We can't see infrared, but they can. They're even attracted to it at night. And that's very interesting. I've always thought I would love to do a lot of experiments with infrared. I believe it would help us see deeper into the light spectrum. But I think dogs and cats already can do that. They already can. They're already attuned to this light spectrum that we can't see. Like William says, there's only so much we can see and hear and experience on our plane of existence. Um, when a dog or a cat kind of does something like that job of looking at something that's not there, I kind of pay attention to it. I mean, he probably sees something I can't see. That's the way I look at it. But
Yeah.
if we're very attentive, and as we say in law enforcement, observe everything. Observe everything. Don't let nothing get past your observation. If we're very attentive and very sensitive to our environment, we can still pick up on things that we normally wouldn't do that. And I think some people are some people more or less than others have that ability, to do that. But I think we could train ourselves to do it to a certain extent if we put our minds to it, to access what's going on in the environment around us.
Yeah.
yeah. One of our cats last night, matter of fact, did that very same thing. I was just sitting there staring, and it's like, all right, what are you seeing? I'm, obviously now I'm being very attentive to what's going on, and I'm watching, and it's like, man, I don't hear anything, and I'm just sat there and stared the whole time where I could see the cat and I could see the space it was looking at, and I could not see anything.
Well, Gerald, this is the boring part of ghost research. You have to sit in a room hours on end waiting for something to happen. And here's what I said in my book, Beyond the Shadows. You have to become part of that environment for them to accept you a little bit more. It's just like a duck blind or a deer blind or something. You're sitting there and you become part of the environment around you. They will get more used to you. I've had this experience time after time after time. You go in a haunted location, those spirits will go hide from you. They'll either go up in the attic if there's an attic or down in the basement. They'll get away from you because you're somebody new coming in. You're a stranger to them. And your vibes, I think, are different than the ones who live there that they've gotten used to. And so you got to understand, you just don't walk in a room for 10 or 15 minutes, do a couple of EVPs and walk out. What do you think you're going to get? Nothing. You're just wasting time. You got to go in that room and spend hours in that room and become part of that room. You understand? Or that location. This goes with hunting Bigfoot too, by the way. No, it's not just with ghost research. You got to go and become part of that environment. Then you've got a much, much better chance of actually catching something. You know? But if you just walk chassieing in there for about 20 minutes and call it a night and walk on out, you're just wasting your time. But they don't want to show you that on Ghost Hunters, that you got to sit in there about 4 or 5 hours waiting for something to happen. They're not going to show that. That's the boring part.
Yeah, some of it's even days.
But it's interesting that you get rewarded eventually sometimes by actually catching something if you hang in there, But a lot of people don't have the patience to do that. Yeah. I want a ghost and I want it right now. Okay. That's what I told a woman one time. It was kind of funny. She said, I want my house blessed. I want to get this thing out of here. I said, well, we'll do that. She said, I want it out right now. I said, lady, if I could get the paranormal to perform for me, I would be a very rich man. I could get to do what I want to do. But it don't go that way. I said, we'll work on it, but, I've only got so much I can do, If I could get the paranormal to show up when I wanted to, I could get you some great pictures, man.
Yeah, that would be amazing. You could hire the spirits out to go haunt a house for a night or something.
Yeah. Well, that's like I say. That's why so many blurry pictures of the Bigfoot. I mean, you're not really expecting him to walk in, and your camera's got to move. I used to take my groups out in the cemeteries and all that, and teach them how to video record and how to take photographs, the correct way to do it. There's a certain technique you got to use if you want your video or your photograph to come out in a good way, And that's the thing about the Bigfoot. It's always jumpy, choppy, and out of focus because these people say, hey, get that, right quick, trying to get a picture of that, That's like that UFO encounter I had. It went right over my head. I had a phone in my pocket. Never once thought about taking a picture of it. Because it was just that fast. There's no way I could have done that. Unless I had been standing there waiting on it, expecting it, I could have got you a great shot of it. But that doesn't happen with paranormal research and investigation. Very rarely does it happen that you get a shot at it that way. So you got to understand, you're working on a handicap. A big handicap.
Especially now in the digital age, those sensors inside the cameras and phones, you're moving your phone or camera trying to figure out what's going on, and that processor in there has to try to figure out what it's seeing. And by the time you snap that picture, it could be pixelated, it could be blurry because you didn't sit there and wait long enough for that to come into focus and the sensors to do its job.
Now, on my phone camera, which I use a lot, I've got it set where to start counting down. When I push the picture, it'll go 1, it'll go 2, 1, and then take the picture. Well, I do that so you don't want to move. See, that's a drawback about this digital. You got to be completely still to take a photograph worth anything, because if you move a little bit, it's going to come out blurry. Just like as you said, it's going to pixelate, So that's why I got the countdown. I think about if you can do that with your phone, you're better off. It goes 2, 1, and then bam, it takes the picture. So that gives you a chance to focus, to center it, to center it where you want it to be, and be still and get that picture. That's the way to do it, But I've taught people this. with a video camera, and I love the video. I love videotape better than still photography in some ways. It's living, it's alive, kind of thing.
Right.
Anyway, there's a certain way you walk with a video camera. Now there's gonna be places where you're gonna have to walk with a video camera. But here you don't want to watch. You don't want to see the ground moving like this, going up and down. When somebody walks, you want to film while you're walking, but you got to be careful how you walk because you've got to try to keep that balance on that camera going the right way. You don't want to be doing this, while you're walking. You
Right.
got to understand what your end result's gonna be. So you got to be very careful. When I was
Yep,
an
I like.
infant, my grandmother said a long, dark-haired woman would stand over. Maybe that was a guardian spirit, you know,
Mm.
of an ancestor. What were you going to say, sir?
I like the sport mode where they take flashes every few seconds or whatever. Sometimes
I've
that
done
comes
that.
in. That comes in real handy because
Yeah.
once in a while you'll get something one frame, but you won't get it in the other frame.
Now here's another thing. Girl, and I'll tell my people to do this too over the years. During an investigation, take pictures of everybody. And they say, why you want to do that? It's not a social club. That's not what it's about. You take pictures of everybody there because some spirit may be attracted to a certain person or attached to them or maybe interacting with them and you don't see it, but the camera pick it up, So it's a very real possibility you can see how that happens. So it's important. Here's what I say. Take pictures of everything. Just start taking pictures. It doesn't cost any money now. You can put them on your computer and go through them and get rid of what you don't want. But
Right.
take as many as possible because you got much more of a chance of catching something.
Only if you know what you're doing on a computer.
Yeah.
I just wanted to
I
throw
try
my
to stay on the computer. I try not to stay on the computer very long because it tends to bend the screen.
I'm not too technically savvy. I'm like old school. I still do smoke signals. So
I'm
know,
so
when
old.
I
My
first-
keyboard's in braille.
When I first when I first got into ghost hunting, we did the old stuff like baby powder, strings on the doors, glass of
yeah,
water
baby
on
powder.
the table to make sure that you remember that.
Yep, baby powder
That was
was
the good
baby
old
powder
days.
was a big one. Yeah, baby
Yeah.
powder was a big one. Yep.
Uh-huh.
Man, we left many a houses smelling like a baby's butt.
Oh yeah. Get up your nose too, man.
I remember taking a candle and putting it on glass, and letting it burn, and then scrape off the black, and mixing it with baby powder to try to get fingerprints off of stuff. And oh my gosh.
Yeah, we used
I was
Scotch
gonna
tape.
answer Lori here a minute. Said my mom and aunt agreed whenever it passed would come together. And my aunt looked into a mirror and her face turned into my mom. Let me tell you right quick. When my older brother, passed away, his wife came and told me a story. He died there in the house, in a hospice kind of a thing, but he died in the house. And she came to me later and said that she actually that night saw my brother's face in the TV screen. It was cut off, it wasn't on. And she actually saw his face appear in the TV screen. And I told her that was probably kind of a visitation thing, because it didn't scare her. It made her feel better. But, I've often had a lot of stories about TV screens doing that.
Amy, I'm sorry. I always hate to hear people say that they have to sleep somewhere else because they're afraid of the spirit activity, or possibly demonic activity. So that always bothers me because, there is such thing as a sanctity. Okay. And your sanctity stands straight in your faith. Whatever your faith is, you need to stand strong in that. Okay. That's your sanctity. That is your That is your all-encompassing protection, and that's going to draw all your loved ones in to help protect you too. So,
And I've told people over the years, you kind of visualize that white light like around you, and it's like a shield or a covering, like big umbrella kind of a thing. You envision that in your mind, and let your faith hook into that. That you got that protection going on there. It makes it more real for you.
Now we
true.
we burn sage, and do the stuff like that, and we do the protection, prayers and stuff, and that's the big thing, like you said, William, whatever you believe in, whether it's Jesus or God or whoever you're praying to, have them come in and you pray and have them take over the space, and like Williams or Dennis said, we picture like Himalayan salt coming down and covering the whole area, like it's a protection for us and
cleansing thing,
yes.
Yeah. Well, I've had many cases, and it's unfortunately true. Okay. Thank you, Raven Creek. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you get some out of it, some interesting tidbits out of it. The thing is, I've had a lot of groups come back and say, "Oh, we brought this home with us. This thing followed us back. Now it's making life terrible on us." I said, "Well, you messed up. You did not protect yourself going in. You didn't protect yourself coming out. That's always rule number one. Yep. And they fail to do that."
Yep.
What an interesting thing that I always go back to is not necessarily, I'm going to say the olden days, but it wasn't that long ago where when somebody usually died in their home, they didn't usually die in the hospital. It was usually their house. And then they would have the wake in the parlor of that house.
Oh, yeah.
So you literally making a celebration of a death or a loved one. And then a lot of times they don't leave.
You ever wonder why they call the living room the living room?
Yes. Because they used to be the parlor where they showed the wake, or became the dead room.
The dead room, yeah. Now it's called. I said we gotta get that out. We're gonna call the living room now. It's much brighter that way. But I remember as a kid when they used to have people at their house. When they used to we called it laying a corpse. You had they were brought back home. Of course, they don't do that anymore, and I can understand why. But I told William, I don't know if I ever told you, Joe, about one of the freakiest things. And this was one of the very first paranormal things that ever occurred to me, and it still freaks me out when I think about it. But I was with my grandmother on my father's side passed away. They brought her back home, back to the house. And and when you laid a corpse, somebody had to sit up with you. They had to sit up with the dead. They had to stay there. So my father, being that was his mother, my father volunteered to do that night. It was the night before the funeral, and my mother, of course, was with him, and I was with them. And I was probably, oh God, I guess I was probably about 6 or 7 years old, 8, maybe I might have been 8. I don't know. But here's the freaky thing. Along about midnight, everybody went home, and the food was all put up, and we were sitting there, and we weren't, I don't even think, in the same room that my grandmother's casket was in. We're in the room next to it, but we could see the casket. We were sitting that close to it. And anyway, all of a sudden, we start hearing this noise. I said, "What is that?" And it was a scratching, noise. And honest to God, Gerald, every cat in that neighborhood was clawing up the south side of that house.
Oh.
I mean, there must have been 100 cats out there. I have never seen that in my life before. And I remember my father going out, and my mother and my father kind of looked at it and said they knew about this. They'd heard about this happening before. I never had. It had never occurred to me. But I remember I seen them. They were crawling up the screen wired windows. They were all over that house. outside. I don't know what would have happened if they'd let them in.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I've often thought over the years if it was maybe the smell of embalming fluid or something. I don't know, or the smell of death. I don't know what was going on, but animals are attracted to the smell of decaying flesh to a certain extent. It brings forth their animal instinct. I've heard a lot of animals doing this out in graveyards, digging up people. And a lot of times, some of these fly-by-night funeral homes, you might want to call them, don't really embalm people. They just put them in there. They save a lot of money that way. Who's going to know, right? Who's going to
Right.
tell? So anyway, I think that goes on a lot. But my father went out and chased these things off. He would chase all these, get them off. And he'd come, and no sooner than he got back in and sat down, they'd come right back. And this happened all night long until dawn. And when dawn came, I walked out on the porch, there wasn't a cat nowhere. They just all went. And that was the weirdest, freaky experience I'd ever until that time. I was about 8 years old, I think, that had happened to me. You explain to me what happened that night, because that was very strange.
Good morning, Cryptid Huntress. I'm sorry, I had to chuckle about that.
Cryptid Huntress. Well, sometimes you can hit and miss, Cryptid Huntress. Sometimes you can hit. Most of the time you miss. That's just the way it goes. That's the way it goes.
Yep, definitely. About time for that cup of coffee, isn't it there, Jessica? I would say definitely after that kind of a night and a day.
Jug of coffee there.
Now we still have some old houses, that were from Victorian times, where they still have the little corner recesses for where you can actually maneuver the coffin down the stairways or something. Most of them have the little statues, or they have an old candlestick telephone still sitting in them, but that's not what their purpose was. It was so that you could move that coffin down the stairway to give you room to put that corner in to get around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I remember that in the funeral homes too. Had all kinds of antiques in them. I'd love to have some of those antiques, man. They funeral homes were just downright spooky looking back in the day too. I remember one we had in town. It's no longer there, but it would have been a perfect place to film a horror movie. It was bad. Here's what gets me: you're already depressed, feeling bad. Why do they want to make you feel worse? And put you in that kind of environment. I can understand. I can understand why they don't want to bring anybody home anymore too. That's definitely.
Yeah, I remember as a kid going to family funerals, and it's already an old Victorian house, and it looks creepy to begin with, and it had iron gates around the property. And then you go up inside, and it's all the old style, carpet still and wallpaper on it. It's just like you're walking into a haunted house, and the lighting is all dim, and they had like candle lights and gas lights, still works inside of it. And it's just, I don't know. This wasn't very relaxing going in there to view the body when it's already gives you that creepy feeling.
Yeah, we have a couple.
I remember too. On the they would always put two big lamps each on each end of the casket. Remember that? They would shine up on the ceiling, spooky looking stuff, man.
Yeah, we have a few of them houses around here, and every time I drive past one, I tell Tracy, I say, "Hey, there's a Scooby-Doo house. There's another Scooby-Doo house."
Yeah, wasn't 1313 Mockingbird Lane or anything, was it?
That's kind of like an old guy told me. Old guy told me one time. Let me say this right quick. Told me one time. He's an old guy. He's about 90 something years. He said every time I go to the cemetery, I feel like I'm apartment hunting.
That's
my
horrible.
mom had ghost kids in the house. They would play upstairs and make all kinds of noise. She would tell us, but Lloyd, that's very. I investigated an old haunted schoolhouse one time, and you could actually once in a while catch quick, brief noise of children playing out on the playground. They have several reports of that, and I think we actually picked up some of that, a little bit of the EVP on that. Very weird. That was residual type haunting, really. That's what that is.
By the way, I want to say hi to Brandy Haywood. Good to see you on here. You know, there's a lot to be said about haunted objects. Have you guys ever experienced haunted objects at all?
Oh, yeah, I did one time. Definitely. I had a lady call me one time, and she started telling me about all this paranormal activity going. It was the standard stuff, doors opening, lights going on and off, water being turned on, all this stuff, footsteps. And I asked her, I said, well, have you, how long has this been going on? She said, oh, it just started about 2 weeks ago. I said, what do you mean? 2 weeks ago? And she said, yeah, until then, nothing's ever happened around here. My husband built his house on this land. We never had any problems. And I said, well, there's something, there's an explanation for this. Like I say, there's a key to every investigation. You got to look for it, So I told her, I said, well, it certainly dawned on me, have you brought something unusual in your house lately? That could be, have some kind of attachment to it. She said, no, I hadn't brought it. Well, she said, well, I do have a love seat that I bought at a yard sale. They call them a little short couch, a love seat, I said, well, go back to the people you bought that from and find out the history on that. And she called me like a couple of weeks later. She said, how did you know about the love seat? I said, I didn't. What did you find out? She said, well, the people I bought it from said a man committed suicide on a love seat. So I said, get rid of the love seat, okay? And you'll be all right. And which she did, I think. So there was still that trauma of a spirit being attached to something. So yeah, definitely. Objects can do that.
Hey, in the comments, do you see where it says, I wrote, please like or heart for the show? I didn't write that.
I did.
Oh. I'm sitting there looking, it's like, I did not type that. How did that come up?
I just did it again too. Yeah, I just noticed we've got one like. We've got one like out of all the 28 people, there are 30 people that are watching on YouTube. We have one like. So, and
I
Facebook,
just wondering who was ghost writing for me, because I know it wasn't me.
So Gerald, have you had any haunted objects in place?
No, not that I know of it. And like Dennis was saying, we've had loved ones pass away, and we've brought stuff home from their property or their house, but we always pray over it, protect it, and so, but we haven't had necessarily. We got antiques all over this house because my parents, even when I was a kid, we'd always go to flea markets and auctions, and so I have a lot of antiques from my parents and their parents.
I would advise you to do a cleansing on those objects and use a little salt on them, maybe, just to be on the safe side. You know what I'm saying? Whenever you bring something like that in and with an unknown history to it, it's a good idea to cleanse that object a little bit and all. Yeah.
Yeah, we as Native Americans, we take red cloth and we'll lay the object inside the red cloth and we'll lay sage in with it and we'll fold the red cloth over it and set it outside in the sun all day, and that'll cleanse it too. A lot of people do the same thing with crystals. The more they're in the sun, the more they're going to get cleansed and cleared.
You can also place a prayer cloth over these things.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of like that red cloth you're talking about. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, like I said, Chiro and me, we always pray over the objects that we bring in, especially here lately. We've had a couple relatives or people pass away, and we're cleaning out their houses or whatever, and some of it's family heirlooms. So we've been bringing stuff home here
Werewolf.
to pass out to
Werewolf.
the other siblings and nieces and nephews and stuff. But yeah, everything we've prayed over before we've taken it or brought it physically here to our house.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Let's see.
there are such things as cursed objects. Objects can also be cursed by dark magic to bring about bad luck and stuff like that. You can run into those objects, and then you have other objects that can be. That was kind of like Annabelle, the famous doll Annabelle was sort of a cursed object. And then you can have objects that have a spiritual attachment, like to them, that of the previous owners. So you can run into a lot of different things like that. Definitely.
Yeah. Yep. Have you guys ever had any experience with the shadow people?
Oh yeah, I have numerous occasions, all different types of the shadow people. I was at an investigation one night, and it was an apartment house, believe it or not. And these were a bunch of apartment houses in there. And I was sitting there talking to one of my team members, and she sounded a bit funny behind me. Like I said, "What is it?" She said, "A shadow person just walked behind you." And I said, "Which direction did they go in?" And she said, "Well, they went that way." So I went over that way and looked, and down in the bushes, down a little bank, there was a big cemetery. And they went right into the cemetery. And I found evidence in that cemetery of ritualistic type stuff being done. So I think that was the explanation for why this new apartment building and all this stuff was being haunted demonically. I think somebody left the doorway open nearby.
Yeah. What about you, G? Anything?
No, I haven't really experienced anything about shadow people or anything. And, I've read up on them and watched videos, of other people's experiences of shadow people, but physically, I have not ever seen one shadow or apparition on the wall or anything of that nature.
What about Chiro? Has she or
She has
Nope.
told me a couple stories about a shadow or a glimpse of a dark entity, or it doesn't really look. She said she didn't really look like a person's silhouette or anything, but it was definitely a casting of a dark, but there was nothing there to cast that shadow, and it did move, and she always caught it at a glimpse of the corner of her eye, like what was that, but there'd be nothing there.
right? Right.
I
Yeah.
had a case. I had a case very similar to that, where it was a shopping mall or a shopping center type thing. And the story was that this bag lady, she had a shopping cart lady, I guess you call her. She would always push a shopping cart. She was homeless, I think, and she would collect all kinds of stuff out of garbage cans and all that. And they knew this woman well around this shopping area, shopping center. And they found her dead, froze to death one morning on Christmas Eve, actually. And they said the story started. I investigated this that you could still see her shadow, the silhouette of her pushing her shopping cart on the side of this building. I went there and camped out all night, and I did see some freaky stuff, but it could be possibly a reflection of automobile lights on some of that, which is what I found. But I still saw one thing that looked very much like someone pushing a shopping cart. But I couldn't really say for 100% sure that's what it was. But your imagination could do that with you too. But I had to kind of rule it 50-50. It could either be a haunting, could not be one.
Yep. Good morning, Nana Boss. Good to see you on here, and happy Mother's Day to you too. And again, happy Mother's Day to all of our viewing family out there, all you moms. And happy Mother's Day to Tracy. And I just Mother's Day is a good day to get everybody thanks to having a mom and having somebody to take care of them. So and remember all the times that we weren't so polite to our moms and when we were younger, and all the stuff that they had to put up with.
Yeah, especially that. Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
I was gonna say about that ghost woman thing. I wrote a story about it. It's such a interesting ghost story kind of a thing. I love ghost stories. I used to do presentations at schools. I've done a bunch of schools. So I used to talk to little kids, and that they love ghost stories. I always have them come up. Most of them they'll come up at the end and say, "Mr. Carroll, do you believe in ghosts?" And so I didn't want to scare them, give them bad dreams. I would say, "Well, I believe in ghost stories." Okay, so I kind of sneak out of that one a little bit, but anyway, they love, kids love that. Everybody loves a good ghost story. Everybody really does. If you got a little kid left in you, you still love a ghost story. Every family used to have their own set of ghost stories. And the old folks, and I used to do this when I was a kid in the neighborhoods, the old folks would sit out on the porch every night, especially during summer. And talk would always turn to ghost stories, or if it didn't, I would turn to talk that way. And I would listen. I got a bunch of those cataloged up here. A great amount of ghost stories, but it's a cultural thing. It's really cool.
Yeah. I'm gonna start my blog again pretty soon, and on my blog on Nighthawk Strangeness, I'm going to start doing my journal entries and stuff for a lot of stuff that happened in the haunted house and the paranormal property that we grew up on, that I grew up on. Things that specifically
that would be
what happened to me.
great. That would be a great way to start your book, William.
Yeah, I know. I keep on postponing it, and this and that comes up, and I just we'll get it going. There's so much out there that I could tell people that has happened to me growing up, and happened to people that were friends of mine that were with me, and and other family members. But my other family members, I don't really want to discuss that aspect of it too much, but I will disclose what happened to me, and in a book form at some point in time. But it was a very, very interesting, to say the least, a very interesting childhood growing up there. Um, a lot happened. A lot happened. So,
have you ever wanted to go back there and really investigate it?
Well, let's put it to you this way. My sister went back there and took a picture of the inside of the house, and it was the person that owns the property now completely redid the house. Doesn't even really look the same on the inside. And
tell them what happened when I was pregnant.
Oh, I will. I will.
Tell the story with the ball and everything, and what happened.
Yep. And anyways, in the hallway of the house where a lot of activity was, where we've seen the Grim Reaper going down the hall, and we've seen demonic entities, literally demonic entities looking like dragons going down the hall. The guy actually has at the end of the hallway, on the wall, on the whole wall of 7 feet high and about, I'd say probably 5 foot wide, there's this cross. He put a cross there. So, that in itself tells you right there that he even found out having that property, moving into that property, how active it was. Like I said, growing up in that house, we had the artesian well in the basement, and we all know how water is, when it comes to paranormal activity.
Oh, yeah.
So, I remember actually being, as a child, lowered down into that well to help pull the well pump out because the well pump would quit working. And I was up to here in water, up to my chest in water, and I was pulling on the chain and the rope to bring the well pump up. And something had grabbed my ankles and pulled me under. And I next thing I remember splashing in the water. I was like 9 or 10 years old, and I remember splashing in the water. And then I remember this hand coming down and grabbing me at the back of my shirt and literally picking me up by my shirt. And here it was my dad. My dad had basically, rescued me. But you know, there's all kinds of stuff that happened in that house.
That sounds to me very definitely like it's a portal or a gateway there, definitely.
Yeah. And the crazy thing about that well water was it wasn't clear. If it was clear, it was so clear it was black. So
that sounds very much like Bobby Mackey's. You remember Bobby Mackey's?
Yeah.
They had a well in their base, in the basement of that place.
Yeah.
Very similar.
But there's so many things I could talk about that I choose not to. I'm going to put it in the book form, and we'll see what happens with it.
What you could do is do the journal type thing and take each journal entry in your journal and just make sure you get it recorded. And then what you do later on, you just adheres those journal entries together. That's how you make a book. It would much be easier, a whole lot easier on you to do it that way than just say, I'm going to sit down and write a book and I got to do this. And just take the entries and put them together and in book form. That's all you'd have to do,
Yeah, I think I've already got like probably 6 or 7 of those entries on the blog site. I'll have to get the information to everybody for the blog site if they want to read what my childhood was like. It's an interesting read. I tend to hold a lot internally. I don't like to disclose a lot that happened to me growing up. One thing though, when Tracy and I were in the house,
I was in bed resting.
yeah, was Dakota born then?
I was pregnant with him.
Okay, all right. When we were in the house, we had moved back to the house to temporarily with my parents, and Tracy was pregnant with our first son,
laying in the bed.
Laying in bed in the hallway in the back bedroom. I think I was out. I think, yeah, I was in the kitchen with my mother, and next thing we know, she hears and I hear, and my mom hears this ball bouncing down the hallway, and it bounced down the hallway towards the bedroom, bounced off the wall where the cross was on the wall there for right now at the new location with the new owner, and then bounced back down the hallway. But when we looked down the hallway, there was no ball. So, there's so much activity that happens on that property. And spirit tried to get people's attention, and demonic in that property definitely got the attention. And the demonic in that property was not fun at all. It was flying around in the air. Yeah. It was. Yeah. Yeah. And it was just really, really something. So
that sounds like that somebody at one time or another opened a gateway there and didn't close it.
Well, see, here's the thing, with all the ceremonies and stuff that my mother was doing.
That too was a draw.
It would draw the negative energy in, and the energy would stay there. Whether you'd seal the portal or hole or whatever, or circle or not, the energy would still be there because it was such a dominant energy. and the ceremonies were welcoming. The ceremonies were welcoming all that negative, evil energy to come in and manifest itself.
I
And
guarantee you,
and
it's probably still there too.
honestly, I really don't ever want to go back to that property. Okay, that property, um, and I don't know why, but I'm drawn to that property, to go back to that property, but I fight it every day of life. I
Yeah, but
fight going back to that property.
you're drawn in a bad way, is what you're saying.
Right, exactly. But yeah, that property and that house was very, very evil. Evil time growing up. It was something that I really am not proud of. I was a very, very evil young man, and up into adulthood. I didn't care about people. I walked in the shadows. I walked in darkness. The ceremonies that I did were all blood ceremonies, where I'd slice my hand or I'd slice my finger or some part of my body. I'd give a flesh offering off of my shoulder. Um, it's stuff like that. And I'm sure Juno, my brother in the chat, he's probably gone through a lot of shit too. And we as children, we are innocent, and we're drawn into the dark, and the darkness knows that out of our being naive, how to embrace us and pull us in. And that's why I don't like talking about it very much anymore, um, because I
Well,
don't
here's the
want to
thing.
I don't want to be drawn back into it. So
Yeah, here's the thing about the darkness, William. Okay, and we always remember that we talked about this the other night about, and when you talk about witchcraft or the dark arts or whatever name you want to give it, it requires darkness from you. Just like you said, you had to do the blood stuff, the blood ceremonies. True witchcraft, to become a true disciple of Satan and to get the power you need in this world, you have to kill one of your family members. I
right,
know this sounds awful. I know this sounds terrible, but you have to actually give the darkness the blood of your kin. If you don't give
yeah,
it your blood, you got to give it the substitute blood, which is your kin. It can be your brother or your sister or even your father or mother. A
but
cousin will
that's
do, but
see,
it's a blood sacrifice and it requires darkness. Darkness
right.
acts
Well,
only for darkness. You know.
we would go out, and I remember as a child going out, and we would trap a coyote, and game like that, and bring them in and do sacrificial type of stuff with that. It's I never had to sacrifice one family member, thank God. I always sacrificed myself. And I think that's why I have such a connection, being drawn back to that property, is because I never once put somebody else in that harm's way, that I always put myself in that harm's way. And
Now you gotta remember too, Wade. You gotta remember too, the attraction of the darkness is like an alcoholic. All it takes is another drink, and you'll be right back where you were, kind of a thing. You know what I'm saying? And that's the way the darkness attracts you. It won't that you take that next step backwards to it. It's waiting for you, and you have to move forward and away from it as much as possible for your own safety. That's how that's how alcoholics and drug addicts overcome these things. And the darkness is the same way. It can be the worst addictive thing you will ever run into. I think you know what I'm talking about, and you got to handle it very carefully. I think you're doing the right thing to you distance yourself from it. You have to. You know.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, it's just it's just something I've dealt with. I probably haven't dealt with it in the right way. But I have embraced the light, and now light encompasses me to fend off whatever is trying to draw me back into it. And I don't want to be drawn back into it because I know what I was capable of doing. I remember, and I've said this previously, I remember being in seventh grade and eighth grade and being able to sit in the back of the class. And when somebody got called to the chalkboard, yes, we had chalkboards in those days. And somebody was asked to solve a problem, whether it was a math problem or an English problem or whatnot on the board. I would put a thought in their head and they would exactly write down verbatim what I was thinking and putting in their head to the T. And I mean to the T, the exact way I would envision. And I mean, that was the kind of power that I had. And, that kind of power, to give that kind of power up is a lot to ask of a person because you almost feel like you are invincible. You feel like
You get
the
high
more
on the
you
power.
embrace. Right, exactly. It is a high. It is a high. It's not good. I remember I used to be able, I wasn't the biggest kid in seventh and eighth grade, so I had a lot of people picking on me. I didn't get big until I was like in 10th grade, and then I started picking back. Um, but I I had a couple bullies that were in seventh grade, and I had some good friends that were decent size, and they would try to protect me whenever they could. But this one time, I remember this bully and his minion surrounded me on a bus, and he went to swing at me, and I remember thinking, his fist is not going to hit me; it's going to hit the side of the bus, and he's going to hurt his hand. And sure enough, his fist came towards me, and I mentally pushed his fist aside, and he hit the metal frame of the window in the side of the bus, and he busted 3 of his knuckles in his hand. So that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. You know, I could go on and on and on, but I don't want to make this show about my background. But that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about that I dealt with on a daily basis, and it wasn't good. Everybody, I mean, you all had probably a really good upbringing, really great parents, parents that loved you and cared for you, parents that were there for you. Um, I didn't. Okay. My dad was a truck driver, and the majority of my life growing up, um, he wasn't around. He was usually around, he was gone 3, 4 days at a time, and then he'd come back, and then he'd take off again within 12 hours and do another haul. I mean, it was that kind of a life growing up. So, you know, whenever I got time to talk to my father was late at night at the kitchen table at midnight, and I would stay up and do that, whenever I could. Um, and my mother took it upon herself to teach me all these things, and you know, when my father found out about it, he became very, very angry and upset with my mom because he knew what kind of darkness she was messing with, and he tried to put a stop to it, and I'm sure he tried his best, but his best wasn't good enough. Um, you know, and the damage was already done. That's the bad thing about it. When you're a child, the damage is already done. So, but
Yeah, well, children are very impressionable, and they are definitely products of their environment, especially growing up. And if it's not a good environment, it can have a detrimental effect on you through the rest of your life. But the
yeah,
past is the past, and you got to keep.
right,
Sometimes it's a good idea to put the past and keep it in the past, you know, and not let it, in the present or the future, definitely. But you are
yeah,
products. We all are products of our environments. And then, when we grow up, here's the interesting thing. When we grow up, we enhance our environment around us. We sometimes continue that environment. That's the way my mother or father did it. That's the way I'm going to do it, kind of a thing. We continue that environment, but we can also, we can also change that though if we need to, and we need that's a change, a good change. As I've often told people, you can, if you really put your mind to it, form good habits and do away with your bad habits. So we are products of our environment, but when we get older and grown up and more wisdom, we can change that property. We can do that if we have a mind to do it. Great
uh,
show. Working while you listen. Y'all
yeah.
we'll do it to someone else, Dennis. But if you give me some material, Mr. Nighthawk, we'll see what happens. Okay. You give me some material to work with.
We can
Uh,
we can make it a collaboration.
yep.
Uh,
Uh, and when
but
it
yeah,
becomes the number one bestseller, we'll talk about it. Okay. But anyway, we'll talk about the movie. Okay.
uh,
I want Brad Pitt to play me. Okay.
yeah,
I don't know. Okay.
yeah. I yeah, but
Water, water,
growing up,
water draws spirits. That's been a known thing for many
yeah,
centuries.
yeah. But it's just
I
it is
talked
what it
about
is.
this the other night. I talked about this the other night. I don't mean to interrupt you, but this made me think
No, that's
about
fine.
this. I gotta say it. When I think about it, I forget it. We talk about storms have a spirit, supposedly. Every storm has an evil spirit attached to it. Water has a definite supposed spirit to it as well. And I think some people pick up on that, and that's what scares them about water. What do you think, William?
Yeah, yeah. Well, they say that the closer you are to like a river or a stream or some type of body of water that's actually moving, that it conducts a certain paranormal energy off of it, an electricity, as you might want to say, a spiritual electricity that attracts entities and gives entities the power to interact with this realm. So, I've seen it firsthand happen. So, it's got to be true.
Yeah, I think people picking up on that when they kind of get that spooky feeling about water. Certain places can be the same. Certain locations can do that to you. I've actually been in locations several times where, like I've said this before, evil was so thick in the air you could feel it. I actually had to go home and take a shower. I felt like I was just dirty, violated by it. You know what I'm saying? It felt
Mhm.
that bad. And as a police officer, I've been in environments. I mean, and I wonder how people could live like this. That I had to go back to the station and take a shower. Kind of thing that you wanted to, because you pick up on these things. What is in that physical realm about around you also affects you spiritually. You got to remember that. It always does.
We also got the stories and stuff like the Lady of the Lake.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. She was the spirit of the lake. That's what she was. She was sort of the. I think there's a name for it. What do you call them? I can't think of what you call them, but they're elemental type spirit. Is what they are basically.
Would it be a sprite?
The fairies and all that kind of connection. The Fae, as they call them. I don't like to call them fairies. That sounds. I call them the Fae. That's what they always call them. And they had a lot of connections to trees. We talked about trees having spirits and stuff like that. They had a connection to rocks, trees, the mountaintops, crossroads, bridges, water, whatever the case may be. You always have a potential of paranormal activity in places like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. See, I knew Juno would agree with me that, he knows. He knows. So anybody out there that knows Juno or is friends with him, you keep him in your prayers, keep him in, and he's a great person. Um, and Juno, my brother, I will never let you down, man. Okay. My medicine walks with you. Remember that. Okay.
Hey Corey, I hadn't heard from you in a long time.
Yeah. Good to see you, Corey. Good to see you on here, man. I miss talking to you. Send me an email or something, okay? Let me know how you're doing. Okay. So I got to keep track of my brothers out there. So, and you're definitely one of them, Corey. Don't you forget it. Anyways, getting back to the subject at hand,
Ghosts.
have you guys ever seen or heard of somebody interacting with the Hat Man in a haunted location?
The Hat Man is demonic in my book. He's a demon. I don't know what his name is. I haven't ever been able to find that out. But he occurs over centuries in different locations to different people. And he is always very malevolent. That's me, by the way. That's not the Hat Man. That is, actually, that is me. That's a drawing my cousin did of me, actually.
I was wondering why it looks so
I
creepy.
thought it was pretty cool. Oh, no.
That's
Wow.
a Hat Man. That's the Hat Man, but the wrong Hat Man. Okay? The Hat Man I'm talking about. The Hat Man I'm talking about is malevolent, very evil, and he attacks people. He mostly likes to choke people. So he's not a good guy. He's demonic in my book. What do you think, Gerald?
Yeah.
Yeah, all those stories and encounters with the Hat Man, I have never experienced it, and nobody I know personally has experienced it. But you read the stories, and it just makes you wonder, what kind of forces are behind that, or where did he come from?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I know what Corey's talking about here. He's talking about the time that my mom did the voodoo doll on my best friend's older brother, who was bullying him. And she told my best friend across the street to go get a lock of his hair, and she would take care of it. And very next day, my best friend come over with a lock of his brother's hair, and he cut it off that same night, and while he was sleeping, and she made this dough doll. She made this voodoo doll out of dough, and put the hair in it, and did the incantations and stuff on it, and the ceremony. And she dumped that doll in the trash can, okay, outside our back door. And let me tell you, that trash can stunk. I mean, it stunk like you wouldn't believe. I mean, you would gag and throw up if you smelled it. Anyways, she stuck that doll in there in the bottom of the trash can, metal trash can, and the bags of garbage went on top of it. And over time, it must have been like a month she left it in there. And do you know that that bully, his older brother that was the bully, took tomato baths and showers and all kinds of stuff, pine tar soap, anything he could to get the stink off of his body. And do you know he couldn't? But as soon as my mother pulled that doll out of the garbage, a month later, the stink went away. Now,
Well, I've got a confession to make here, William. I've got a doll of you over here, and I've got a big pen here, so I'm gonna. Where do you want me to stick it? Anyway, I get Tracy to send me some of your hair. Get Tracy to send me some of your hair.
I need that. I need acupuncture in my lower back. I need acupuncture in my lower back, Dennis. So put the needle back there.
There you go. All right. Well, I heard a thing that Vincent Price did the other day. They were showing this. You remember the Hollywood Squares? You remember that years ago? Mm-hmm. And they asked Vincent Price a question. You know, they said, and they were talking about acupuncture. Said, if a man sticks a needle in your arm, what is he trying to do? And Vincent Price said, well, I don't know, but somewhere in the world, some doll probably died. There's no voodoo doll, you know. That's pretty neat.
Yep.
But anyway.
Oh yeah, he stopped bullying.
Doll. I have a voodoo doll over here. I have a couple of voodoo dolls, by the way. And of course, they're only for informational purposes. I don't use them. But I do have a couple of voodoo dolls, by the way.
Only.
but we can see what we can arrange here. If there's somebody you want me to get with them, you know.
Oh wow. Okay.
We'll see what we can fix up.
Let me see here. Could voodoo dolls ever be used to fixing something on someone?
They're usually bad stuff. They're bad juju. They don't do good usually with them.
Yeah. Usually the hands-on type of a healing or a cleansing is the best way to deal with someone that knows that they need it. And first off, when you're dealing with somebody, Joey, that needs that kind of a help, they need to admit it, that they need the help. They need to come forward and say, I need the help, you know. That way, because if they come into it and they don't acknowledge that they need that help, it's only going to work half-assed. Yeah. So.
Well, it's like that old saying, you can only help those that want to help themselves. You can't force it on somebody, unfortunately. That's the way it goes. The same thing goes with learning. You can't teach anybody anything unless they want to learn it. You know, we got to have that connection. Yeah,
no, I've taught a couple of lessons here and there through my life.
Hey, G, have you ever used a voodoo doll?
No, never practiced that or anything, but I've watched, a lot of videos and read a lot of stuff about, the culture that uses the voodoo.
I'm gonna get Jane to send me some of your hair, Gerald, just in case. Okay.
Oh no, I burn and dispose of all my toenail and fingernail clippings and hair. It don't go nowhere.
Well, seriously, back in the old days, the superstition is you never let your fingernail clippings or your hair out in the world. You burned them, you destroyed them, because people could use those to get power over you. And, that's where your voodoo doll comes in, by the way. And also a piece of your clothing. So people back in the old days, they would burn everything. They would say, hey, I don't want it to fall in the wrong hands, Yeah. True.
Yep. Yeah. Native American medicine men and spiritual elders, the holy men, which is basically what I could technically call myself, because of my upbringing. we always, like Gerald said, we always take and burn we don't leave our hair on our hairbrushes. We don't leave our fingernail clippings out. We usually dispose of them in a manner, in either a burning type of a thing, or we dispose of them without anybody knowing where it's at, and we do a protection ceremony over the items. Um, that way, nobody can take and use it against you. And there's a lot of things out there. There's things out there that people do. In fact, something was done to us back when we lived in another location, and a witch had basically suckered us into befriending her and all that, and me teaching some of the stuff that I knew, and she actually in turn used it against us, and she hexed a rock. And this is an old witch trick. You can hex a rock or anything that is spiritually connected to the ground, to Mother Earth. You can hex it, and you can drive past their house, and you could toss the rock out into the yard, and they're not going to know that rock from another rock. Okay. And you're driving away, and you're saying the incantations as you drive away, and next thing you know, the people in the property that live in that certain part of the property where the rock is are being inundated with all kinds of problems. So
well, the witch jar, William, the witch jar was specifically done for that. The witch jar was the protective stuff put in a jar and buried on your property to keep those things from happening. You run into witch jars and witch marks. Will you mark a house or dwelling with a certain mark to keep that from that bad? In certain aspects of black magic, people can actually have ghosts come to haunt you.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
they can actually do that.
Yeah, we call them fletchings. I've sent fletchings out too, to people. So when I was younger, believe me, the fletchings are demonic, and they're not good to have. They're not good to have around you. It's a low level demonic entity that will
imps.
Yeah, will wreck your life like you wouldn't believe.
Oh yeah, that's part of the curse process. That's part of the curse thing, is to put that on somebody. But voodoo, Lori, is a very interesting thing. I've had several voodoo cases, and it's some pretty nasty stuff, believe me. Well, usually dark magic is never used for anything good. And when you do some of this stuff, it is dark magic. Unfortunately, that's the way that ball bounces.
One of the things that a lot of the Wiccan practitioners do when they want to protect somebody or to give somebody in a better light is they'll take the name of that person and they'll write it on a piece of paper, and they'll lay it somewhere, and they'll put a lit white candle over it. And that, as long as that candle is over that name, the person won't have any bad luck. Yeah. So, I mean, it has to be a white candle. There's all kinds of different things, green candles and red candles. Red candles are used for love. Black candles are used for really, really dark. You don't want ever to have a black candle. No, you don't want a black candle burning either in your home, because it welcomes the evil to come to your house.
Draws it in.
Yeah. So
and of course, the white candle's good. It's more of a refreshing, blessing type of a thing.
Right. Right.
Yeah, most all candles found in churches, what color are they? They're white.
They're white. Yeah. And if you actually are a practitioner of the arts, that it can't be a candle that's not full color. It's got to be full color wax. It can't be red on the outside and white on the inside. It has to be all one color.
Solid.
Yeah. So, but that being said, it's been a great show. It's been well over 2 hours, and my butt is killing me on this wooden chair. And so
Well, watch
I.
out, Lori. Watch out for rocks.
No, Lori, I don't do that. I don't
You
do
know,
that.
why I warn people about taking things out of graveyards and cemeteries. Don't do that, because a lot of cursed objects are put in cemeteries in order for you to do that very thing. So
Yep.
I had a group out in the cemetery one time, and I always tell them, first off, number one rule: do not take anything out of this cemetery except yourself.
Right.
Don't take
Yeah.
anything else that you may find out
Well,
here. That's a bad stuff.
do you know why witches and stuff use the rocks and all that to put hexes and stuff on properties? It's because in the biblical times, it was said that let he without sin cast the first stone. Okay. That's kind of the reason that the dark arts use that stone or rock as a way of mocking the right way of living your and God. And you don't want to mock, trust me, you don't want to mock God, because whatever power you
Right.
think you have, whatever power you think you have is nothing compared to what I've seen with God. You all know about the vision I had recently, so chalk that up to it. But Dennis, if you want to talk a little bit about how your faith and stuff can protect you and all that through all that, that'd be great.
Yeah, there are certain safeguards that we can do, and I was just thinking about, since you were talking about rock, I was thinking about salt. Why do we use salt, and why does it have to be sea salt? Well, sea salt is the natural salt of the earth. And Jesus said that in the Bible. You are the salt of the earth, meaning you are the product of God's love. That's what that basically is. And that's why salt is such a cleansing factor in the things that we do. Of course, you have sage, you have rosemary, wood, you have these different things, these other herbs and stuff that are cleansing things as well. Uh, so there are ways to protect yourself physically from a lot of this stuff, like the cross, of course, and all that. And I talked about this on my show, Demonology, today, which will be on tonight, by the way, at 9 o'clock tonight. I'm going to have a very interesting one. Anyway, I talked about this the other day. That cross that you hold up, whatever it may be made out of, wood or metal or silver, is just a symbol, okay? You don't put your faith in that piece of metal. Your faith is not in that. Just like you don't worship the creation, you worship the creator. There's a big difference here. And you don't put your faith in metal, whatever it may be, or salt or whatever. But these things are symbols to activate the focus of your faith, which is your relationship between you and your creator. That's what that basically is. But this helps you focus and put in your mind and get you in that mindset to activate that faith that's in you, that connects you with your creator. And when you do that, it puts out that white light I talked about earlier, that encompassing white light, that peace and protection that encompasses you and whoever may be with you. Let me tell you a quick thing. I always, if I were going into a very bad paranormal case, and I knew it was demonic, I would go out somewhere on the property and I would draw a circle. Just a small circle, big enough for maybe 2 or 3 people to get in. I wouldn't draw, I'd just mark it. It wouldn't have to be with paint or nothing. I mean, I would just mark it that way. And I would consecrate that circle. And I said, this is holy ground. This is, by faith, we hold this area. And by faith, we make it strong and protective. And if something happened during that investigation, I could take somebody into that circle to relieve them from attack by these type of spirits. So we had safeguards. We could do things to protect ourselves and to form that shield, that armor of God that the Bible talks about, that shield of faith, that sword of the Spirit, and that helmet of salvation. That's what you need to fight back the fiery darts of the enemy or whatever may come your way. I'm going to tell you one more thing. And people say, oh, Dennis, you're all about demons, demons, demons. No, I'm not. Although I do talk a lot about demons, they are a real factor. I just want people to understand that. That's what you may have to deal with. But there are also other malevolent spirits out there, too. There can be evil human spirits. There can be evil elemental type spirits. There can be different types of spirits that will harm you out there. So you've got to realize that what you're going up against and what you may face will do that. So you've got to take that protection, and that protection starts with you. It starts right here, inside, with that faith that you must activate it to get it going. Because the Bible says, works without, faith without works is dead. You want to have living faith, and that's what activates, gets things done, and protects you and protects people around you. But it's a foolish thing to face your enemy without any armor. Foolish.
Right. Exactly. So with that being said, everybody, we're going to close out this podcast. I really appreciate everybody, in the chat. You guys are awesome. You're the family. You're the Weirdo Warrior family. Never forget it. Okay. We love you all very much. Again, I want to wish everybody a very, very happy Mother's Day. Take the time, enjoy it. Try to take a deep breath and relax a little bit. And just enjoy the day. Okay. Enjoy the sunshine. If depending where you're at, know that the sun is shining somewhere, and just listen to the rain hitting the top of the roof, as gentle as it is. To every life, some rain must fall. So, that being said, you guys want to go over what shows you got going on this afternoon and evening?
Yeah, tonight on Piercing the Veil into the Unknown, we have Krista and Brandy from Blondes and Booze are going to be on our show, and they're going to talk about their ghost investigations. This is kind of like what we've been talking about, and I believe they're going to go into their latest trip to the LBL and tell us what they experienced there.
Okay, cool.
And that's tonight at 8 p.m. Actually, they couldn't do it any other time. They had other stuff going on, so we had to change the time.
Okay. And Dennis?
Well, I got my show on tonight, like I said earlier, Demonology Today, and it's going to be the third part of the trilogy I've been talking about, and it's called The End Game. It's in your future. So it's going to be a very interesting hour. That'll be tonight at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time for Demonology Today.
Okay.
Also, I'm still working on going into production, hopefully pretty soon, on my video series, The Midnight Road Excursions into the Unknown.
Yeah. Now, Dennis, you can come on the StreamYard site anytime you want because you're in the administration. So, all you got to do is type in StreamYard and bring it up, and it'll pop you right in. So you can do whatever you need to. Okay.
I'll be doing that.
Everybody, it's been great. You can catch us here. Well, at the bare minimum, you can catch us here 3 times a week. On Friday night at 10 o'clock into the Red Rabbit Hole or Becoming Monsters. We rotate them so nobody gets bored. And then every Saturday and Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern, we have the Paranormal Weekend Morning Brew Show, which is what you have here, where we just sit around and drink coffee and talk about the paranormal stuff and supernatural stuff. So, everything from UFOs and aliens to cattle mutilations to ghost hunting and spirits to demonology to Bigfoot, other cryptids. We talk about it all. So check us out here. If y'all can, please like and share this channel out, Nighthawk High Strange, this podcast channel on YouTube and Facebook, and also Midwest Night Watchers. They have their own channel. And then also go to Cheero Sounds, okay, and subscribe to her YouTube channel, because let me tell you something. It's amazing what the Tibetan bowl music will do, and all the other music and the tone levels will do to help heal and make you feel better. So I really want to put it out there that she does a really good channel. So, and I think she should do
sound therapy is a known thing. Sound therapy.
We're gonna take some of our night shows during the week. After I get home, and we might start a fire and maybe have the camera pointing up at the constellations or the fire. And Jane's gonna be playing either singing bowls or Native American flutes or whatever, just to set a vibe and meditation for people that happen to be up or maybe need some peace in the middle of the night. We're gonna try to do some of that coming up.
Yeah. I think it would be awesome. I really do. I really think that, I actually listen to it every now and then at night, and it actually does help. So, it's really something. If you guys have a chance, please go to it and subscribe to her channel, because it's really good stuff. So, and we're all family here. So if y'all ever need anything, feel free to send us, an email or to let us know to get a hold of you, and we'll get a hold of you and try to help you however we can. There's so much going on right now that people need help every now and then. They really do. So that being said, happy Mother's Day, everybody, and we will see you all probably. I don't know if I'm going to be doing a Midnight's Monsters this week or not. I think it's going to be every other week. So we'll see. We'll see what I come up with. So it's hard enough planning these 3 programs, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Boom, 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 So, but we'll see. We'll see. I just want something in the middle of the week on a Tuesday, something where people can enjoy and just kind of just drive if they're driving late at night or.
You never know. I might go live one time. You never know.
Yeah, true.
All right.
True. Okay, everybody take care.